The first sign was a text that made my stomach drop in a way I couldn't shake. It wasn't the words themselves, those were almost mundane, but the timing, the casual distance, the hollow reassurance. Wait until I get back. We'll talk then. She'd sent it after I called 3 times in a row, my voice tight with worry, my heart already sensing a fracture I couldn't name. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over a reply, and didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to trust her, had always wanted to, but another part, a cold, persistent whisper, told me she was already somewhere else, in more ways than one. I tried to reason with myself. She'd been distant lately, yes, but that was normal sometimes. Work stress, family stuff, late nights at the office. I told myself that over and over. But then came the small things that couldn't be explained away. A call I didn't hear because she left the phone in another room, messages deleted from our shared app, excuses that didn't quite fit together. She said she was meeting a friend. I asked which one, and she shrugged it off, brushing my question away with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. I started noticing the patterns, the subtle shift in her routines, the way she checked her phone the second I left the room, the way she kissed me on the cheek instead of the lips in the mornings. I hated myself for overthinking it, for being paranoid, but I couldn't help it. My instincts were screaming, even as my heart kept clinging to the fragments of what we had. It all came together one quiet Tuesday evening. She said she had to pick something up across town, and asked me to wait until she got back. I agreed, trying to mask my anxiety, nodding as though nothing was wrong. I paced the living room, checking my phone every 30 seconds, until curiosity turned into compulsion. Her phone had been charging on the kitchen counter, forgotten. I almost walked away, but some voice inside told me that ignoring it would leave me with nothing but questions. I unlocked it with the code. She always left me in case of emergencies, and that's when I saw it. Messages I wasn't supposed to see, between her and someone else. The words were small, casual, intimate, too familiar. My heart stalled at their ease, at the hidden laughter in phrases I used to think were only for me. I read on, hands shaking, trying to reconcile the woman I loved with the one who betrayed me. The messages weren't even clever or discreet. They were clumsy, frequent, and full of a familiarity that made my stomach twist. And then there were pictures, subtle selfies meant only for him, and 100 tiny moments she'd left unshared with me. Each one was a jagged shard, and suddenly, the home we built together felt like a fragile lie. I didn't confront her immediately. I couldn't. My mind kept circling, trying to find a reason, trying to convince myself it was all a mistake, a misunderstanding. But the truth has a way of settling in your chest, a weight that grows until you can't ignore it. I remembered all the little things she'd said to me lately, things that now sounded empty, rehearsed even. I love you. I miss you. Don't worry, everything's fine. The words felt poisoned in my ears. When she walked through the door hours later, her smile was bright, her voice light, and my hands were shaking as I held the phone behind my back. She hadn't noticed anything, or maybe she had, and thought I was too weak to act. I waited for a beat, tried to steady my voice, and then said, "We need to talk." Her face fell slightly. I watched her eyes flicker, calculating, guilty. And that's when I knew, whatever excuse she had prepared wasn't going to hold. "I know," I said, my voice low, steady, even though my chest ached. I laid her phone on the table. The messages, the pictures, the proof.
I didn't yell. I didn't beg.
I didn't cry. I made sure there was nothing left to discuss. I simply let the truth sit between us like a living thing. She tried to explain. She said she didn't mean for it to happen, that it was just a moment of weakness, that she still loved me. Her words collided with mine, and I realized that love wasn't enough. Not when trust had been shattered, not when every memory had become a question mark. I could see the guilt in her eyes, but it wasn't enough to undo months of lies, weeks of deceit, and years of false comfort. I thought about walking away then. I wanted to run out the door, disappear, never look back. But instead, I stayed, because I needed her to see the weight of what she'd done. I needed her to see that betrayal isn't just a word, It's a slow erosion of intimacy, a quiet killing of what we once were. And I needed to see it with my own eyes, to mark the end clearly before stepping into whatever came next. We didn't speak for a long time. I sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped, while she stood awkwardly, her gaze fixed somewhere on the floor. The silence was louder than any argument we could have had. Every corner of the room felt heavy with things left unsaid. The kisses that weren't real, the laughter that was hollow, the nights where I thought I was holding her heart but was only holding air. Finally, I said, "I can't do this anymore." My voice was calm, almost detached, but inside, my chest felt like it had been hollowed out. "I loved you. I trusted you. And you made your choice." She tried to reach for me, and I pulled away, not out of cruelty, but out of self-preservation. I needed to protect what was left of me from being shattered further. I needed to reclaim my own sense of dignity, even if it meant letting go of the woman I still loved. I packed a bag that night, not in a rush, not in anger, but in a quiet, deliberate way. Every item I touched, every photograph I folded, every note I tucked away reminded me that some love, no matter how deep, cannot survive betrayal. It wasn't about hate, it was about survival, about learning to breathe again in a life that had suddenly become unfamiliar. When I left the apartment, the door closed softly behind me, and I didn't look back. The street was empty, the air cold, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a sliver of clarity. I knew the road ahead would be lonely at times, painful at others, but it would be honest. It would be mine. And though I would remember the love we had shared, the quiet mornings, the careless laughter, the dreams we built together, I would also remember the lesson that self-respect isn't negotiable, that betrayal cannot be overlooked, and that sometimes the hardest act of love is walking away. I didn't want to leave her with hatred or anger. I left her with truth, and I left myself with the beginning of healing. Because in the end, the person I needed to wait for most was me.